All right. Now we're gonna cover a pretty important concept called iteration. Iteration means dealing with items in a list. So here we've got this people. There are three people in this list, and what we'd like to do is we'd like to write a program that can deal with lists that can be any length, and then produce output depending on what's in the list. So if you imagine, let's imagine a program where I'm going to do this in comments so we can kind of plan it. So we want to be able to print, say, a message for each person on the list where we say, Jeff is 10 years old, and Lisa is 12 years old, and Tiff is 16 years old. Okay, so that's perfectly good. We can totally do that. In fact, we've even had this I think before. So let's go ahead and let's kind of create the template. So we're gonna say whatever the person is. Let's go ahead. We'll just kind of have person here stand in for the person that we're gonna define later on. So the person's name is, and then we need their age. So person age years old. All right, so person here, it's not defined as anything, right? It's gonna stand in. So we're gonna need to define it ourselves. So we're gonna say person equals people of 0. So that's gonna be Jeff, right? And so if we run this by itself, it's just gonna say Jeff's 10 years old. So make sure you're like following along. You got this at home. So that's pretty easy, right? And so now what we can do is we can redefine person as some other value. So we can say instead of the 0th one, let's go ahead and take the first element, the element 1 of this. So Lisa. Now we get Lisa. So this is pretty good. So now I can create this again. Now I can say, all right, so now I want to grab Tiff. So far so good. So now I can process the whole list. So I've got, all I do for each person, for each element in the list, I'm just going to copy this code and add another one, and that'll work. That'll totally work for me. So if I go back up to the list and I say, okay, now I've got Alex, and he's 18. Run my code. Oh no, Alex didn't show up. Oh, well, that's because I didn't copy this thing. But you can imagine, like, this is going to get old. Like, I'm totally going to forget to copy this over and over again. What you really want to say is you want to say for each person in this list, print this message. So Ruby has a great built-in construct for that, and it's called each. So people each. And then now what we want to do is we want to define one of those special blocks of code like we did with find and with select. So we're going to use the curly braces, and we're going to use the bars. And here in the bar, we're going to represent the individual persons one by one. The individual people is going to be person. And it's the same as what we did in these lines. So we said, go ahead, take the 0th element of people, assign it to person, and then execute this code. So just take this and we'll move it inside the block. And now we don't need any of this stuff. Doesn't matter how long this list is, they'll all get printed out. In fact, here I'll just kind of copy the list again. Just gets longer and longer and longer. No code change. All works exactly the way it should. That's essentially iteration. There's really not that much else to it. The only thing I would say is if you've got a statement that is complicated, so if you want to do more than one thing with each person, so suppose you want to put 2 messages. You want to say the whole the age thing, the driving their cars thing. You can break this onto multiple lines. So now I could say if person of age is greater than or equal to 16, I'm going to say I'll just put this in the second part here just because it's like more logical. And they can drive. And then we'll just look into it in a little bit, kind of make it fun. All right, so it's Tiff and they can drive, Alex and they can drive, and you can see how we can take this code fragment and we can break it out into multiple lines like this. So it's like you do this thing and then you do this thing and then that's the end. So you continue to do the next person. So that's breaking like this little fragment onto multiple lines. And then the one thing that you're going to see over and over again, and that's just because of the way that the Ruby semantics are, is if you're going to break onto multiple lines like this, rather than using the braces, there's a slightly different construct you can use, and that is you can use do and end. So it's the same thing. It's literally exactly the same. There's no difference at all. But you can use do and end, and the way that we do it in Ruby is if you have something that is a one-liner, you use the braces. So here's one-liner, one-liner. And if it's a multiple liner, we use do and end. That's just how it happens. That's just the way the programming language evolved. So don't be thrown off by that. It's the same thing. And the key that's telling you that it's like one of these, what's called a block or a code fragment, is that there's this this bar thing in here. So you've got the do in the end and the bar, and that's telling you like boom, it's a code fragment. Same thing with these braces. So that is iteration.